My son Caleb died 15 years ago. I watched his coffin go into the ground with my own eyes. But last night, at exactly 3:27 a.m., my phone rang, and his name flashed across the screen. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and tell me where you're listening from. I never thought I'd say these words out loud, but I need to get this story out of me before it eats me alive. I'm not a man who believes in ghosts or miracles. I'm a science teacher, retired now, 56 years old. My wife left a long time ago, and the house has been quiet ever since. Too quiet. For 15 years I've lived inside that silence. I've tried therapy, prayer, pills, distractions, but nothing fills the hole Caleb left behind. He was 17, smart, funny, reckless in the way teenage boys are. A drunk driver ran a red light on a rainy night, and by the time I reached the hospital, my son was already gone. I buried him myself. I remember the weight of the shovel when I tossed the first handful of dirt. The thud it made when it hit the wood of his casket still wakes me up at night. I kept his old phone number active all these years. I know that sounds insane, but I couldn't let it go. Every few weeks I'd call it just to hear his voicemail. Hey, this is Caleb. Leave a message and I'll call you back. For 15 years, that was the closest thing I had to hearing my boy's voice again. Last night started like any other. I fell asleep in my recliner with the TV on low, half a glass of whiskey melting on the side table. Then the phone buzzed. I glanced at the screen through bleary eyes and felt every cell in my body freeze. Caleb, not Caleb, do not answer. Like I renamed it years ago to stop myself from calling when I missed him too much. Just Caleb, as if someone had changed the contact back. I stared at it, heart pounding in my throat, trying to convince myself it was a glitch. Maybe the carrier recycled the number. Maybe some stranger was calling by mistake. But my thumb, it moved on its own. I answered. For a few seconds there was nothing but static and the faint sound of breathing. Slow, uneven, human. Then a voice, Dad. My heart stopped. The voice was faint, shaky, but there was no mistaking it. I'd know it anywhere. It was Caleb's voice. Dad, where am I? It's so dark in here, the room spun. I couldn't breathe. I felt cold, like the temperature dropped 10 degrees in a second. Caleb, I whispered, son, what are you saying? He coughed softly on the other end, a confused, frightened sound. I can't move. It's tight. I can smell dirt. What happened to me? The whiskey glass slipped from my hand and shattered on the floor. I pressed the phone tighter to my ear, as if that could bring him closer. Caleb, listen to me. You were in an accident. My voice cracked. 15 years ago. What? His voice trembled, like he was trying to make sense of words that didn't belong in his reality. That can't be. I was just on my bike. I saw headlights. Then everything went black. But now I'm here. I'm cold, Dad. Why can't I move? I stood there in my dark living room, every rational thought in my mind collapsing under the weight of something impossible. The line crackled. I could hear him breathing, struggling to understand. Caleb, I said, trying to stay calm. Wherever you are, just keep talking to me, okay? Tell me what you feel around you. Wood, he whispered. It feels like wood. Above me, beside me. I can't see anything. It's pitch black. It smells old. Like soil, like... He paused. Like my funeral, my blood ran cold. Son. My knees gave out. I dropped into the chair, phone still glued to my ear. You're scaring me. Are you sure this isn't... I'm not dead. His voice broke, filled with raw panic. I can think, I can talk. Please, Dad, get me out of here. Tears blurred my vision. My hand shook so violently, I nearly dropped the phone again. I wanted to scream, to run, to wake up from whatever nightmare this was. Then, as if he could feel my disbelief, his voice softened. You still visit me, don't you? Every Sunday. My heart stopped again. No one knew that but me. I'd never told anyone. Not my ex-wife, not my therapist. Every Sunday morning, I went to Willow Creek Cemetery, cleaned his headstone, changed the flowers, and told him about my week. Caleb, I whispered. How do you know that? I hear you, he said, almost like a sigh. When you talk, I hear you, but I couldn't answer. Until now, I felt something inside me snap. disbelief turning into desperate hope. "Where are you right now?" I asked, voice trembling. "I don't know. I just woke up here. It's dark. I can't move. I think—" He hesitated, breath shallow. "I think I'm still down there." "Down where?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. In my box, silence. A silence so heavy it seemed to crush the air out of the room. Then a soft beep, the kind every phone makes when it's dying. "Dad," he said, barely audible, the lights blinking red. "I think the battery's dying." "Wait. Don't hang up," I shouted. "Caleb, please stay with me. Tell me where—" The line went dead. I tried to call back immediately. The ringtone buzzed once, twice, then the automated message kicked in. "The number you have dialed does not exist." I stared at the screen until it dimmed to black. My reflection stared back. Pale, trembling, eyes wide, like a man who'd seen the impossible. For 15 years I'd kept that number alive, so I could pretend my son was still out there somewhere. And now, somehow, he was. Because at 3:27 in the morning my dead son had called me. I didn't sleep after that call. How could I? I sat in the dark, replaying his voice over and over in my head, every breath, every tremble, every word. I checked the call log. There it was, 3:27 a.m., 0:02:47 duration. Proof it happened. At 4 a.m., I grabbed my jacket and car keys. By 4:10, I was tearing through the empty streets of Willow Creek, headlights cutting through the mist. My hands shook so badly I could barely hold the steering wheel. The road to the cemetery felt longer than ever. 15 years of grief pressed down on my chest like an extra passenger. When I pulled up to the iron gates, the guard booth light was still on. Mr. Silas, the night watchman, had been working there since before Caleb died. He always waved politely when I visited on Sundays. Tonight, he saw my car and stepped out, squinting against my headlights. "Mr. Ward," he called. "Everything all right?" "Silas, I need to get in," I said, my voice shaking. "Right now," he frowned, glancing at his watch. "It's nearly 4:30 in the morning. Cemetery's closed, you know that." "I know," I said, trying to steady my breathing. "Please, it's about my son, Caleb." The way his face softened told me he still remembered the funeral. Maybe he pitied me, the old man who never moved on. I leaned on the hood, voice breaking. "Something's wrong." I got a call. From his number. He blinked slowly. "A call?" "From him," I whispered. "From Caleb." Silas looked at me the way you look at someone you're afraid might break, cautious, gentle. "Mr. Ward, grief plays tricks. I've seen it. People hear things, dream things. I'm not dreaming," I snapped. "I have the call logged right here." I shoved the phone toward him. 2 minutes and 47 seconds. "That's not a dream." He hesitated, then sighed. "All right, but I can only let you in for a few minutes. If anyone asks, I didn't see you." He unlocked the gate and grabbed his flashlight. We walked the winding path together, the gravel crunching beneath our shoes. The mist hung low, swallowing sound. After 15 years, I didn't need the map. Left at the Marble Angel, right at the stone bench, straight down to the big oak. Caleb's grave sat beneath it, the one with the clean white headstone that read Caleb James Ward, 1993-2010. I'd polished that stone so often it shone under moonlight. Tonight it looked different. Colder, harder, like it was watching me. I knelt beside it. "Son, it's Dad. Nothing. Only wind through the branches. Please, if you can hear me." My voice cracked. "Say something." Silas stood back, flashlight trembling slightly in his hand. "See?" he said softly. "Everything's fine. No disturbance." But I wasn't convinced. I pressed my palm against the soil. The grass was damp with dew, smooth even. Not a hint of movement. Still, I swear I could feel warmth beneath the ground, like faint static under my skin. "I heard him," I muttered. "He said it was dark. He said it smelled like dirt. Mr. Ward, I buried him right here," I cut in. "This exact spot. I remember the rain that day, the way the mud caved in around the casket. And now he's calling me from it." Silas lowered the light. "Maybe someone cloned the number. Happens all the time. Then tell me how he knew I visit every Sunday, how he remembered the letter I buried with him." That silenced him. I sank to my knees. My palms pressed harder into the grass until my nails scraped the soil. I whispered, "Caleb, can you hear me? Please, son, once more." Only silence. Then a faint buzz, my phone vibrating in my pocket. I yanked it out, heart pounding. "Unknown number, Caleb?" I answered breathlessly. Static, then a click and nothing. The line went dead again. I looked up at Silas, voice cracking. "You heard that?" He nodded slowly. "You need to go home, sir. Get some rest." "I can't," I said. "I can't leave him if he's down there awake." He placed a hand on my shoulder. "Mr. Ward, please. Don't do this to yourself." I wanted to scream that he didn't understand, that no one could, but my throat refused to work. Instead, I just knelt there, staring at my son's name carved in stone, the world spinning quietly around me. When I finally stood, my knees ached, my palms were dirty, and my heart felt hollow. I promised Silas I'd head home, though we both knew I was lying. Back in the car, I hit redial. "The number you have dialed does not exist." Again and again. Same message. At 5:42 a.m., I started recording a voice note. I needed evidence, or maybe I needed sanity on tape. "Audio log, May 14th, I said, voice shaking. Received a 2-minute call from Caleb Ward's number at 3:27 a.m. Drove to Willow Creek Cemetery. Grave undisturbed. Possible hallucination? No, the voice was real. I stopped the recording, stared at the phone's black screen. My reflection looked older, haunted, unrecognizable. By sunrise, I drove home, but I didn't shower, didn't sleep. I just sat at the kitchen table surrounded by old boxes, police reports, hospital notes, the funeral program I'd never thrown away. I opened the small envelope marked "Personal Effects, Caleb Ward." Inside were his watch, his wallet, and the spare key to his locker. But what froze me was the paper folded between them, a copy of his teenage living will. He'd written it at 16 for a school project. One line jumped out at me in shaky handwriting. "If anything ever happens to me, bury my cell phone with me. Just in case." I remembered laughing when I first read it. "Just in case," he'd said, smiling. "You never know when I might call you from heaven." I hadn't laughed in 15 years. The sunlight crept across the table, touching that line like an accusation. At 9 a.m., I called Elena. My ex-wife answered on the third ring, her voice distant but composed. "Ethan?" "It's Caleb," I said quietly. "Something's happening," she sighed. "Ethan, please don't." I heard him. He called. Same voice. Same number. Silence. Then softer. "You're still taking those sleeping pills." "I stopped months ago." She hesitated, and I could almost hear the gears turning. Fear, disbelief, anger. Finally, she said, "We'll talk tonight." "I'm coming over." The line clicked dead before I could thank her. I sat there for a long time, staring at that folded paper, at my son's words written half a lifetime ago, just in case, by nightfall. I was certain of one thing: Caleb wasn't gone. Not completely. Something had opened that night. A door, a signal, I didn't know what to call it. But once a door like that opens, you either walk through it, or you wait for what's on the other side to come looking for you. I cleaned the kitchen twice before Elena arrived. It didn't make the house look less empty, just more obvious that I'd been waiting. When her car pulled up, I watched from the window the way I used to when Caleb was late for curfew, breath held, braced for news I couldn't control. She stood in the doorway with that careful stillness I remembered from the hospital, a woman learning how to balance grief like a teacup on her head. She looked past me, into the rooms we used to share, then back at my face as if measuring how much of me time had damaged. "You look tired," she said. "I am," I answered. "Come in." We sat at the table. I pushed the folder toward her, the copy of the living will, the funeral program, the call log screenshot with the timestamp. She read silently, jaw set. "Elena," I said, "I know how it sounds." But I heard him. She touched the screenshot with 2 fingers, as if it might burn. "And you're sure you weren't asleep?" I recorded a voice memo after. "The time fits." I went to Willow Creek. Silas let me in. I stood over the grave. I asked him to speak. Nothing, but I know what I heard. She slid the will back into the folder. "He really did write this," she whispered. "The phone. Just in case. God, Caleb, we didn't speak for a minute." The refrigerator hummed. Outside, a delivery truck hissed to a stop. Life went on, unbothered. I called Marcus, I said. He'll stop by. Marcus. Dr. Hill, he handled the autopsy paperwork. He'll know what exhumation would require. I'm not saying we do it. I'm saying we should be ready if your dead son calls again. She finished for me, not cruel. Just tired of choosing words big enough for what we were living. A knock at the door saved us from the next sentence. I let Marcus in, same square shoulders, same kind eyes, hair grayer. He set a small black case on the table, like a mechanic arriving to diagnose a machine with a heart. Elena, he said softly. Ethan, I showed him the call log. He photographed it. I played the voice memo. He listened twice, head cocked. 2 minutes 47, he murmured. Long enough to be something. Did you answer on speaker? No, I froze. He nodded as if fear were a medical fact he could chart. Then he opened the case. Portable audio recorder, calibrated decibel meter, a little spectrum analyzer that displayed sound as colored bands. He laid them out in a neat row. If it happens again, he said, we record. Not because I doubt you, because evidence gives us leverage. Without it, no court clerk is green-lighting an exhumation in under a week. Elena looked at me. You think we should dig him up? I think, Marcus said gently, we should be prepared for what the law won't allow fast enough. He glanced at me. And I think you'll do it with or without permission if you believe he's suffering. He wasn't wrong. We were still arranging cables when my phone vibrated once. Then again, 3 pulses like a nervous heartbeat. The screen lit the room blue. Caleb, Elena's hand flew to her mouth. Marcus pressed the recorder's red button, slid it toward me, eyes wide. I answered and hit speaker. Caleb, static. Then the sound of shallow, unsteady breathing filled the kitchen like a draft. Dad. Elena grabbed my wrist. I'm here, I said. Your mom's here too. You're on speaker. A tiny intake of breath. Mom? I'm here, baby, she whispered, voice split between joy and terror. I'm here. I can see a little, he said. There's a light now. I found like a small flashlight in my jacket. And there's a letter. The word caught in his throat. It has my name. You're writing, Dad? My stomach dropped through the floor. I had forgotten the letter until that moment. A page I had written the night before the funeral, when language was the only weapon I had against the dark. Can you read it? I asked, hardly breathing. Paper rustled. For a beat, I could hear nothing but Caleb's breath and Elena's thumb tapping a frantic rhythm against my wrist. He began, voice trembling. My boy, if there's anything left that can hear me, know this. You are not alone. I am still your father as long as breath lives in me, and if there is a door between us, I will stand at it every day and knock until my knuckles bleed. Elena sobbed into her palm. Caleb kept reading, halting, faithful. If you can hear me in any way at any time, know that I forgive you for every teenage sin, and I ask your forgiveness for every time I failed to protect you. I will talk to you every Sunday at the Oak. Listen if you can. I love you. I will love you across any darkness. He stopped. The kitchen was so quiet we could hear the clock ticking. Dad, he whispered, I heard you. All those Sundays. I couldn't answer, but I heard. I pressed my hand flat on the table to keep it from shaking the wood. Then listen now. Tell us what we can do. A rustle. The faint thump of his pulse catching on the microphone. Something's changing, he said. Like a tide. The dark isn't solid anymore. I can push against it. But I'm not alone here. Marcus leaned in. What does that mean, Caleb? Not alone? How? There are others, he said. And something in his voice made the hair on my arm stand up, pity and fear in the same measure. Some are confused like me. Some are angry. They only want to come back to take. They can lean on cracks. The more a living person pulls on the past, the more it opens. Elena gripped the edge of the table. Is someone trying to get through to us? Not to you, he said softly. To anyone who will answer. Dad, you have to move fast. I don't know how to explain it, but I feel a window. 3 days, maybe less. I looked at Marcus. He had already pulled a notepad, writing 3 days in block letters. What happens after 3 days? I asked. The door closes, he said. And I won't be able to reach you again. Or worse, I won't be the only one who can. The kitchen felt colder. Elena squeezed my wrist hard enough to leave marks. Caleb, Marcus said evenly, can you describe your surroundings? Anything unusual besides wood, fabric, floral residue? Caleb exhaled. There's a rosary near my hands. The wood is varnished. There's dried petals. And the suit, this isn't my suit. I never owned one like this. Elena mouthed to me, funeral suit. I nodded. Do you see a phone? I asked. The old one, he said. Blue casing. It's warm. Sometimes it glows a little. When it does, I feel less heavy. Marcus raised his eyes at me. Connection. He pointed to the spectrum display, where a faint waveform pulsed in measured intervals, like a tired heartbeat. Caleb, Marcus said, I'm Dr. Hill. I'm here with your parents. I'm going to ask a few more questions so we can help you. How much battery does the phone show? There was a pause. 30%. It dropped fast. I think it's charging off me when I hold it. Or I'm charging off it. I don't know how to say it, Eleanor whispered. Oh God, can you move your fingers? Marcus asked. A little, he said. But the lid, there's weight. Like the whole earth is sitting on my chest. I tried to keep my voice steady. Son, if we get to you, if we open it, what do we do next? I don't know, he admitted, the honesty of a boy confessing. But I know I have to come home. There are things I can do from there. I can hold the door shut after I pass through. And the others? Elena asked, barely audible. I'll keep them out, he said. I have to. I can feel them testing the frame. The call crackled. The sound thinned, as if distance were reasserting itself. Batteries falling, he said. Dad, Mom, if you love me, don't wait for papers, please. Before the third dawn, Elena's composure finally broke. We love you, she breathed. We never stopped, I know, he said. That's why I can find you. The line is you. The audio fractured. His last words stretched into static, then clipped off. Silence. The recorder's red light held steady, waiting for more. Elena dropped her forehead to our clasped wrists and sobbed in hard, quiet bursts. The kind you only hear from a mother who kept her grief respectable for so long, it turned to glass inside her. Marcus reached across and stopped the recording. We have it, he said. His voice was professional, but his eyes were wet. Voice, content, artifacts. It's enough to petition a judge for an emergency order. I'll file today. How long? I asked. Best case, he said. 2 days. Worst 5. Too long, I said. He held my stare. I know. He gathered his gear, wiped the table with the hem of his sleeve as if tidiness might slow our panic.
I'll use every favor.
We'll try the lawful door first. And if it doesn't open? Elena asked. He hesitated. Then we do what people do when a system can't understand the size of their emergency. After he left, the house felt like a church emptied after a funeral. Still echoing, the pews cooling. Elena and I sat shoulder to shoulder, strangers who remembered each other's breaths. She spoke first. If we do this, and there's nothing inside but... Bones, what happens to you, Ethan? I don't know, I said honestly. But I know what happens to me if we don't try. She nodded, bit the inside of her lip the way she used to when grading papers. I'll call into work. I'm with you. We spent the afternoon like field surgeons improvising an operation. Lists, tools, clothing we wouldn't mind ruining. I called Silas and asked for the truth I already knew. That he had keys, that there were hours no one walked the grounds. He paused for a long time. You'll get me fired, Mr. Ward, he said. I think we'll save my son, I said. Another long pause. Then back gate. 10 p.m. I'll bring a cart, not a machine. It's quieter. Thank you, I said. Don't thank me, he answered. Just put him where he belongs. When Eleanor left to gather supplies, I stayed at the table with the recorder and listened to the call again. On the spectrum display, the waveform looked like a shallow wave returning to shore, too weak to break, still refusing to disappear. I saved the file 3 times. Caleb called 2, Caleb call master, Caleb if lost play me. At dusk, I drove to Willow Creek alone and parked a block away. I sat with the engine off, hands gripping the wheel, and watched the sky go purple behind the oak. I thought about the letter, about begging at a door with bloody knuckles, about the way faith lives in men who never claim to have it. I thought about every Sunday I had talked to the stone and walked away, ashamed of how little I could change. My phone buzzed once, no caller ID, just a single vibration, like the echo of a heartbeat that refuses to stop. 3 days, I told the windshield. Told the tree, told the dark. You'll be home before the 3rd. Behind my ribs, something that had been frozen for 15 years cracked, not to break, but to thaw. We were done asking for permission. The door was open. Now it was on us to walk through before something else did. By the time the sky fell dark again, the plan felt less like a plan and more like gravity. Once you lean forward, you're already falling. Elena came back just before 9 with 2 thermoses of coffee and a duffel bag. She set it on the counter and unzipped it. Flashlights, gloves, a small crowbar, rolls of plastic sheeting. Practical things that didn't belong in a home built for quiet grief. Marcus will meet us at 10, she said. Silas texted. Back gate. Did anyone see you? No one who cares. We didn't talk much after that. We just moved. I printed the emergency order Marcus had filed, unsigned, unapproved, a shield made of paper in case we got caught. Elena folded it into her jacket pocket. At 9:45 we drove separately. The night was windless, every sound sharp. The cemetery wall rose out of the dark like an old coastline, familiar and foreign. A single lantern bobbed near the gate. Silas. He looked smaller without his uniform hat. You sure about this, Mr. Ward? He whispered. Grounds firm this time of year. Not firm enough to keep a son from calling his father, I said. He exhaled through his nose and pushed the gate open just wide enough for the car to slip through. Marcus arrived minutes later, trunk loaded with tools wrapped in towels to keep them quiet. Last chance to pretend we're sane, he said, but his voice wasn't mocking. It was prayer. We parked behind the oak. The air smelled of iron and rain that hadn't fallen yet. Marcus checked his watch. We'll work 40 minutes. After that, I can't explain the noise. Elena stood over the headstone, tracing Caleb's name with her gloved fingers. 15 years, she murmured. He'd be 32. I nodded, unable to speak. Then I knelt and touched the soil. Let's begin. The first shovel cut felt like treason. Metal on earth, dull and heavy. Silas's flashlight cast a thin circle over the ground, each strike pulling up clods of damp dirt. We worked in silence except for the rhythm. Dig, lift, breath, repeat. After the first foot, the scent changed, sweet rot and cedar. Marcus knelt beside me, checking depth with a probe. Another 3 feet. Elena's face glistened with sweat despite the chill. Her hands never stopped moving. She whispered every few minutes, the same phrase like a rosary. Hold on, Caleb, hold on. At last the shovel struck wood with a muted thunk. We froze. Silas killed the light. The dark pressed in. Then Marcus turned on a smaller beam, a scientist dissecting a miracle. The coffin surface gleamed faintly under dust. No collapse, no water damage, perfect. Ready? Marcus asked. I nodded. Together we levered the lid. The seal broke with a sigh, and a thread of cold air rose, smelling not of decay, but of cedar and ozone, like the inside of a storm. Elena gasped. Caleb lay exactly as he had 15 years ago. The suit, the rosary between his fingers, the faint blue phone resting on his chest. His skin wasn't grey or sunken. He looked asleep, Marcus whispered. Impossible. The phone pulsed once, soft blue light washing over his face. Elena staggered back. He's glowing. The pulse quickened, syncing with something I couldn't hear but could feel in my own chest. Thump, thump. Marcus pulled a portable monitor from his bag and pressed the leads against Caleb's wrist. The screen blinked. Residual electrical activity detected. Elena, I said, help me lift him. Ethan, we're not leaving him here. Silas crossed himself. You'll get us all locked up. Then lock me up after, I said. But he's coming home. We wrapped the body, no, my son, in the plastic and lifted him out carefully, the weight strangely normal, warm through the layers. Marcus covered the open casket, replaced the soil enough to hide what we'd done. By the time we loaded him into the back seat, the blue light had steadied into a slow, living rhythm. At the house, we cleared the dining table and laid him down. Marcus set up his instruments again. Thermometer, pulse oximeter, electrodes. Data scrolled in uncertain green across the laptop screen. Temperature rising, he murmured. From ambient 46 to 89F. No heartbeat yet. Elena wiped the soil from Caleb's face. He's warm. Feel him. I pressed my palm to his cheek. There was give, softness, the faintest tremor like a cat's purr deep under skin. Marcus checked the phone. Battery 20%. When it pulses, it drains. When it rests, it charges. I don't understand. You don't have to, I said. Just keep recording. Hours passed. The blue light filled the room like moon water, shifting from pulse to glow to pulse again. Elena sat at his head, humming the lullaby she used to sing when he was little. I sat at his side, counting breaths that weren't quite breaths. At 3:27 a.m., the exact minute of the first call, the phone lit up and a single line of text appeared across the cracked screen. Get me out, take me home. Then the phone went dark, and a sound came from Caleb's throat, a thin rasp of air forcing its way up. Marcus leaned close. Reflex, maybe. The second breath cut him off. Caleb's chest rose once, twice. His fingers twitched, scraping the rosary beads. The monitor beeped irregularly. Weak spikes climbing toward coherence. Elena whispered, He's breathing. I took his hand. You're home, son. You're safe. His eyelids fluttered. Behind them, something moved like lightning underwater. Marcus was scribbling notes, muttering vitals, but I couldn't hear him over the pounding in my ears. The light from the phone grew so bright it painted the ceiling. Caleb's mouth opened. The first word came out like air through rust. Dad. Every atom in me broke and rebuilt itself. I'm here, I said. Right here. He exhaled, long and shuddering, then went still again, but not cold. The warmth stayed, settling into something steady. Marcus stared at the readings. Heart rate stabilizing. 90 beats per minute. He's alive. Elena covered her mouth, sobbing without sound. I looked down at my son, older than the last time I'd seen him, but still mine. Outside, the first light of dawn bled into the sky. Birds started singing, as if the world hadn't noticed what had just happened inside one small house on Willow Street. Marcus unplugged the monitor, wiped his eyes. Whatever boundary was there, Ethan. It's gone, I nodded slowly. Then we don't waste it. He gathered his equipment. I'll handle the paperwork. Medical emergency. You keep him warm, hydrated, quiet. The less attention, the better. Elena brushed Caleb's hair back, her fingers trembling. What if it doesn't last? Then we had him one more night, I said. She kissed his forehead, whispered, Welcome home. The phone buzzed once more. New message, sender blank, close the door. Marcus read it, face pale. He said the others wanted through. I looked at the glowing screen until it dimmed. Then we close it, I said. And we keep it closed. The house was the quiet you only get after a storm breaks and the rain decides to rest. Somewhere toward morning, Elena and I dozed in chairs, heads tilted at the same angle, the way people who once belonged to each other unconsciously match. When I opened my eyes, the first thing I saw was sunlight pushing a clean stripe across Caleb's face. His eyelids flickered. Not a reflex this time, a decision. Caleb? I said, too afraid to say it louder. He turned his head a little. His mouth was dry. The word creaked out of him like a door unused for years. Dad! Elena's hand flew to her lips. She made a sound I'd never heard from her, laughter and grief braided together, a rope thrown across a canyon. Water, I said, fumbling for the glass. I tilted it to his mouth. He swallowed carefully, as if relearning the choreography of being alive. His eyes opened fully. They were not the eyes of a 17-year-old. They were the same deep green, but there were years in them, roads I couldn't name, places I couldn't imagine. He searched my face the way a child studies a map, looking for a street he remembers, a route home. You look the same, he said softly. You don't. I answered, smiling through tears. You look like time found you. He let out a breath that was almost a laugh. Time finds everyone. Elena leaned close, touching his cheek with 3 fingers, as if asking permission from a miracle. Baby, she whispered. Do you hurt? He shook his head once. No pain, heavy like I've been swimming too long. Can you sit? I asked. With help. We raised him by the shoulders. He winced at the first stretch, then settled, breath evening. The old blue phone lay inert by his hand, pale now, ordinary. He glanced at it. It was a thread, he said. You pulled. I followed. Where were you? Elena asked. The question mothers ask first, even when the answer costs them. Caleb stared at the window, as if the right words might be written on morning. I don't have a name you'd trust, he said finally. It wasn't a tunnel or a city, more like a coastline made of memory. Sometimes I was near and could hear you. Sometimes I was far and there was only quiet that went on, until I forgot to measure it. I swallowed. And last night, something changed, he said. The tide turned. The dark went thin. I could press my hands against it and leave fingerprints. I found the places you had worn smooth with your visits, Dad, your Sundays. They were warm. He looked at me. I walked toward the warmth. Elena's eyes closed. 2 tears slid out clean as glass. You heard us. All that time. When you spoke, I was less lost, he said. That was the difference. Not distance, direction. He watched the light crawl farther along the wall, like he was memorizing how morning works. I wasn't alone, he added. Some were gentle. Some not. They pushed where the living were afraid. Anger makes bigger cracks. So does hunger that never learned another language. We got your message, I said, nodding at the phone. Close the door. He met my eyes with a steadiness that belonged to men who have crawled back from deserts. If a door opens for love, it opens for other things too. You brought me home. Now you have to make sure only home comes through after me. How? Elena asked. Tell us and we'll do it. Caleb looked down at his hands, turning them over like a craftsman inspecting tools he hadn't held in a while. There were tiny scars along his knuckles I didn't recognize. Let the line go slack, he said. No more pulling. No more standing in the doorway with your hands out. Talk to me when I'm in the room, not when I'm at the tree. Leave the grave to the grass. A part of me resisted. The stubborn ritualist who had carried flowers like a pilgrim through winter. You're asking me not to visit? I'm asking you to let the living be the proof, he said gently. Come to the oak on my birthday if you need to, but not every Sunday. That rhythm keeps the hinge oiled. Elena nodded slowly. We can do that. Caleb glanced at the phone again. And put that away. Don't charge it. Don't touch it. Not for a while. I picked it up. It was cool and unimpressive, an artifact demoted to plastic. I powered it down and slid it into the drawer, where I kept spare screws and old batteries. Somehow that felt right. Marcus arrived late morning with a bag that made him look like he was about to perform a complicated rescue on a radio tower. He stood in the doorway, every inch of him a scientist caught between the duty to measure and the awe not to. When he saw Caleb sitting up, he forgot his lines. My God, he said plainly. Caleb smiled. Hi, Dr. Hill. Call me Marcus, he answered, crossing the room in 3 strides. He did the work. Blood pressure, normal. Temperature, 98.3. Oxygen, 98%. Pupil reaction, perfect. He swabbed, scanned, charted. He hit record and asked questions in a tone so respectful it sounded like prayer. How do you feel now? Hungry, Caleb said, surprised by his own answer. Elena laughed, put a hand over her mouth, then laughed again. Hungry. Thank God. She went to the kitchen and came back with toast, eggs, and the applesauce he had always liked when he was little. He ate with the focus of a climber who knows what mountains cost. We watched him the way people watch a new fire, grateful for heat, still fearful of wind. Marcus lowered his voice while Caleb chewed. The emergency order's moving, he said to me. But we don't need it now, and that's good because we'd have a dozen questions we can't answer. I'll answer the ones that matter, I said. He's here, Marcus nodded. There's something else. He checked his phone, a frown pulling his brow. You remember the driver from Caleb's accident, Harlan Cook? The name tasted like rust. I remember. He died last month, Marcus said. Single vehicle rollover on a wet road. Blood alcohol off the chart. He was on the same stretch where he hit Caleb. Same time of night. Elena went very still. The room shifted, a paragraph breaking to make space for a new sentence. I felt no triumph. Just the weight of a scale set back to 0 without our hands on it. Justice, Marcus added carefully, isn't always a courtroom. Caleb looked between us, reading the past in our faces. He set the fork down. "I know," he said softly. "I saw him sometimes. He was one of the noisy ones. It's quieter now. We didn't press him for more. Some details are gifts you don't unwrap, because the box itself is enough to change you." By afternoon, Caleb could stand with our help and walk a line through the house, hallway to kitchen, kitchen to window. Window to the photograph of the three of us taken on the lake, the summer he learned to dive without flailing. He touched the frame and smiled a grown man's smile that still had the boy inside it. "I miss this," he said. "What?" I asked. "The stupid little noises," he answered. "The fridge motor, shoes on tile, the way a neighbor sneezes like a trumpet. People think they miss big things. It's the small ones that teach you you're alive," Elena cried, in the soft way people cry when a clock is fixed after years of being wrong. We kept the blinds down. No calls to family or friends. We protected the miracle the way poor people protect heat, hands cupped around it, body angled to block every draft. Marcus coached us on plausible stories, extended hospital care, a private facility out of state, a period of rest. He promised to take care of documents, the way a man takes care of a blind corner for his friends. I didn't ask for the recipe. At dusk, Caleb and I sat on the back steps where we used to peel oranges and spit the seeds into the grass. He listened to the crickets like someone catching up on a favorite show. "Will you be okay?" I asked. Really okay? "I won't be who I was," he said. "But I'm not supposed to be. Nobody is, not even the ones who never left." He looked over at me, eyes gentler than any sermon. "You don't have to live at the Oak anymore, Dad." I nodded. "I'll try." "No, I'll do it." We were quiet a long time. "Do you remember," I said, "the letter I wrote about knocking on the door till my knuckles bled?" He smiled. "You did, but you didn't have to break it. You only had to wait till I could open from the other side." I put my hand over his, surprised again by the calluses. "What did you do there?" I asked. "All that time," he gazed past the fence at the thin pink left by sunset. "Mostly I learned to listen. To you, to Mom, to the parts of myself that didn't get a chance to finish sentences. I learned how to forgive the day for ending. That's harder than it sounds. And now I'll learn how to let the day begin," he said, "and how to keep doors closed." That night we ate at the table with the good plates we never used. Elena asked if he wanted grace. He nodded, then surprised us all by keeping it simple. "Thank you," he said, eyes closed, hands open. "For one more chance." After dinner he grew heavy-lidded, worker-tired, not hospital-tired. We helped him to his room, the same room Elena and I had kept like a museum. He stood in the doorway and laughed gently at the poster of the band he had long outgrown. "Tomorrow," he said, "we change things. Keep the guitar, lose the trophies. I'd rather make new ones." He slept with the window cracked, the night air coming in like a promise. Elena and I sat in the hallway facing each other like ushers at a theater no one knew had reopened. We didn't speak. We listened to him breathe. Near midnight, the blue phone in the kitchen drawer vibrated once. No light, no message, just a single thrum, like a bell someone touched and withdrew their hand from out of respect. I opened the drawer and placed my palm on it the way you would on a stone, warm from the day. Then I closed the drawer again. The door was closed. We had what we came for. In the weeks that followed, secrets became our craft. Marcus handled the edges with professional mercy. Elena came over every day after work with soup and ordinary stories. Waiting room wisdom that keeps the world steady. Caleb walked farther, learned how to be 32 without having been 22 first. Some days, he stared out the window like he was checking the tide. Some nights I stood beside him and did the same. The water ebbed. It did not pull. We let it. I stopped going to the cemetery on Sundays. On Caleb's birthday, I went alone, brought one white rose and did not speak. I laid the flower at the oak, touched the stone and left. The grass looked like it had finally been allowed to do its job without witnesses. On the porch that evening, Caleb and I watched the dark turn soft at the edges where morning hides its tools. He bumped my shoulder with his like boys do when words feel too formal. "Dad." "Yeah? Thank you for waiting," I nodded. Thank you for coming home. We sat there. Two men who had traveled different distances to arrive at the same chair, while the world remembered how to glow. If you've listened this far, you already know what I learned. Love doesn't dig up the dead. It teaches the living how to open when the knock finally comes. And when it does, you don't need to understand the door. You just need to hold the hinge while someone you love walks through. Before we go, tell me where you're listening from, and if you've ever felt a knock you couldn't explain. I read every story. Some doors are meant to be closed, but voices are meant to be heard. My name is Ethan Ward. 15 years after I buried my son, I watched him eat breakfast at my table. And tomorrow we're going to the park to learn how 32 feels in new shoes. The rest, the how, the why, the measurements can live in Marcus's files. What matters is simple. The door is shut behind us. The house is warm, and every dawn from now on will sound like a human being breathing.